And we are kicking off episode number 11 on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I am Jason Duhe, very excited to be hosting this show. Of course, alongside will be head coach Frank Monaco. We're going to talk some LHSAA playoffs. We're going to recap the local college weekend with a big win from LSU in a tight matchup and a tough loss for Tulane. And, of course, we're going to go ahead and talk to special guest Sam Spiegelman this week, which is a recruiting analyst for On3 Recruiting. And we're going to look at possibility of maybe the Catholic League splitting being beneficial. And in Football 101, we'll talk about defensive coverages. So we want to bring on head coach Frank Monaco. Coach, sometimes after your biggest win, you have to win a tight, tough game, and that's what LSU had to do this weekend. And Tulane had a big one and just kind of came on the wrong end of it. We'll get into those details later, but when you're able to win after a really tough, hard-fought game, it's tough to get that energy back up, and LSU did just enough to eke out that win.
I think, give it a lot of credit. I agree with that. I think Coach Kelly did a great job of keeping them focused there. You go on the road in SEC and you win against a dangerous Arkansas team, I think that's credit to them. It wasn't pretty, but believe me, it's a W, and you take that any day in the SEC. It's like an NFL game. When you win a game, you've done something, you've accomplished something. But give Arkansas credit. They had a great scheme to stop the zone read. They spied on not only the quarterback, but they had him twice. They had him double covered, basically. They had a guy to take him on the end, and then all of a sudden the linebacker, a strong safety, put him on that one. So they had a real good scheme to stop him, and it looked like, I don't know if LSU's offensively adjusted to that at all. But give them credit. Defense played incredible. What can you say about this linebacker? All of a sudden, he's become a phenom. We didn't know who he was at the beginning of the year, but now he's a phenom, and everybody in the country is looking at this guy.
Yeah, he's incredible. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But we want to once again thank our title sponsor, Accardo and Duhe Law Firms, before we head into prep talk, which, again, we're going to kind of just talk about those brackets, Coach, as we dive into the LHSAA and the games that they have to offer. Coach, we're going to start out the same as last week. We're going to go Division I in non-select to lead things off. A few interesting matchups here in this week, and one that we mentioned is probably the one you have to highlight, is Zachary versus West Monroe. Maybe not the West Monroe teams that we've heard about in the past as much, but again, Zachary seems to be a team on a mission this year. They played phenomenal, only 2 losses on the year, and it'll be fascinating to see them take on West Monroe at home.
Yeah, they'll still be a dangerous team. That West Monroe, you're exactly right, it's not the same team. Zachary's a 5 seed, but very, very good. You saw them before in the Superdome. They have a lot of skill, good quarterback and stuff like that. I mean, so they've been there. They've battle tested. So look for them to defeat West Monroe. Now, a lot of these that we're talking about, all we did was purge some of the teams that we thought that would be competitive games, because even though it's a second round, a lot of these games will probably be one-sided games, and you could get some surprises, but we doubt. I think the ones that we highlighted would be our best game. And we also had one, Denham Springs and Benton. Benton is a sleeping school. I mean, they came down here to play Newman early in the year, and Newman defeated them. They played number 9, Denham Springs. So that could be a real good game. A good friend of mine that actually coaches there, and he knows what he's doing. So don't be a bit surprised to see them advance another step. Another one at D1, we got Destrian and Dutchtown, and you heard a lot of people talk about Destrian and all the D1 guys they have, and a possible dome team. Dutchtown, I think, I don't know if they have the firepower to stay up with them, because Destrian is really good on both sides of the ball. But that's basically some of the matchups we like on D1. That's on the public school side. On the D2 side, we have number 13, Cecilia, who's another pretty good football team against North DeSoto, who's got a D1 guy at the receiver position. And that could be a real fine ball game. Cecilia's coming on at the end of the year. You also have Lakeshore right down there with their wing tee. I talked to that coach today, Coach Indes, and they're going against Opelousas, and he's scared to death. Opelousas runs shoot. They have a monster offensive and defensive line. They have a real good running back. They're the number 3 seed. Naturally they had to bye last week, but Lakeshore with that wing tee can really fool some people. Sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, you can't find the football. Also in D2, I think a real good matchup. Saw both these teams play during the year. St. Martinville versus Lutcher. And, Lutcher's got the real good quarterback, but St. Martinville has several players, and I'm sure they have the speed to match Lutcher's speed. And the advantage there is Lutcher's going to be a home team there. So look for that one to be a real tight a tight ball game. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, Coach, we kind of talked about Lutcher maybe being one of those teams that's been kind of a sleeping giant to look out for, and I think St. Martinville definitely has a quality ball club, but we both really like Lutcher's odds to kind of make a run at that, but St. Martinville definitely has the talent to maybe put up a fight in that one.
Exactly. Moving to D3. Now, not saying these other teams are unimportant, but these are, I think, better matchups. And as far as the seeds were concerned, St. James, the number 4 seed, taking on a tough Loreauville team. And Loreauville is a very good football team, and they'll be well coached. So that could be a pretty surprise game. But I think St. James has more talent than Loreauville has, and bigger team. They have bigger linemen. Then we talked about this the other day, Jason. Union Parish, number 3, playing Sterlington. District rival. They're neighbors, and they get to play again. So I think that Sterlington might have the upper hand this time. It's just the fact that the revenge factor figures into it, even though it's a playoff game and everybody's playing for to stay alive. In Division 4, the only really I think strong matchups we had, maybe 2. Welch was going against Oak Grove. Oak Grove is they've been in the Superdome a number of times. They're battle tested. Welch is a tough, scrappy team. And the other one, I think, is East Feliciana and Logansport. I guess I put that one in there because East Feliciana, I remember that they could barely field 15 guys on the team. And, where they're located, Logansport's a very good team. Number 10 against number 7. We know that the Logansport is always an explosive football team. They will be there when the dust settles. But you kind of your heart goes out to East Feliciana and those people for what they have endured over the years just to be this far in the playoffs. And so basically that's it on the public school side. Jason, on D1, I think that, we have a matchup here in D1. And the D1, as far as select's concerned, you have Brother Martin going against St. Aug again. That was 2 weeks ago. That was a 14-13 game. So who knows what could come out of that one. And I might add, they really have the best draw, because if they get there, they have a very, very good chance of going all the way to the Superdome. The winner of this ball game, I think, has an excellent chance. I would think an 80% chance of making it to the Superdome. Then you have number 19 versus Curtis. And the Catholic League is so brutal during the year. Because what happens with the Catholic League, you get injuries, and if you get healthy at the end of the year and you get in the playoffs, that could be a totally, totally different football team. It looks like Jesuit is getting better. They won 3 in a row. They're number 19 seed, but don't let that deceive you. And Curtis, who knows, after that car loss, you don't know how they're going to come out of this. But I would have to say, Curtis has the best football team of the 2. Jesuit is basically one-dimensional, and that's going to hurt them playing against a real fine defense from Curtis. Number 10, Scotlandville against Carr. And, I mean, if you had an over and under or an over in this one, you might have to put maybe 100 points on this one, because Scotlandville can score. Now, Carr's got a great defense, and they got a lot of people. They're probably the best team in the state, if not the entire South. And there's that number 7 ranking, as we all know, because of the forfeits. They really, really technically should be the number 1 seed. But it's a shame that's how the bracket fell this year. So, and number 15, Rummel goes to Catholic High, played number 2 Catholic High. That's going to really, really be a tough game for Rummel just to stay in it, for at least get it to the 3 quarters or 4 quarters. Catholic High is talented on both sides. Excellent offense. Their offense is better than their defense. And, and my son just doesn't know at Rummel exactly how to attack these guys, but I don't know if there's a good answer, because he's got a very young defense. Division 2, we have St. Louis and Division 2 on the select side. St. Louis Catholic playing Madison Prep. Madison Prep still a very talented team. You know that's going to be a good game. St. Louis looks like they really found their stride though late in the year here. Madison Prep is always going to be a talented football team and they're always physical. The guys like Michael Roach that's now playing for the Saints came from there, and that's kind of football they play. Division 2 also, MAC 35, number 11 seed, playing against Lafayette Christian, the number 6 seed. Well, we know Lafayette Christian still talented. They're very young. They got most of the guys coming back, but they're still the number 6 seed. But listen, McDonough 35 can give them a lot of trouble because they can match their speed. Division 3, here we have Loyola Prep and Episcopal. Episcopal, that Coach Broussard does a phenomenal job with little talent, but he gets the most out of his guys. And listen, they can sneak up on you because the style of offense that they run a variation of wing tees and spreads and stuff like that. Loyola Prep, look like they're coming on to the end of the year. So number 11 versus number 6. And then we go down to Parkview, North Cato. That could be a number 10 against a number 7. Parkview is a team that's always, they've been there before, and they have a lot of skins on the wall. North Cato it's got a real top-notch receiver that's committed to LSU, so that could be an interesting matchup there. And that's also it's also the winner of that. And if St. Charles Catholic wins, they will be the matchup between Parkview and North Cato. Ascension Episcopal and St. Charles Catholic. Ascension Episcopal, probably not the fastest team out there, but they're very, very well coached. And then they have to come to SEC and after the bye, and they could pose a problem for SEC because of the things that they do. But I think that SEC has a little bit more speed on the back end than they have. Division 4, you have Ascension Catholic and Riverside. Now, Ascension Catholic still very talented. Riverside looks like they got the great running back and quarterback by the name of Email, so they can actually score a lot of points on you in a hurry. And Ascension Catholic's going to have to play real good defense, but that could be a pretty good matchup. Riverside, really right now, they're a little concerned because the lack of the district schedule of actually being pushed during the year. They really haven't been tested for a little while. And number 9, Southern Lab is going to go against St. Frederick, so that's an 8 and a 9. And those, that power ranking system, you'd be surprised how close it comes, and it kind of pairing teams up like that. And so that could be an interesting matchup. St. Frederick coming from Monroe. And last and not least is Opelousas Catholic and Central Catholic. Opelousas Catholic came on at the end of the year. Central Catholic is the number 2 seed and has played a real good schedule. So that could be an interesting matchup as well.
Yeah, a lot of great matchups this weekend. One that stands out, as you mentioned through those games, I think Sterlington Union Parish is really going to be a tough one. I know Union Parish has Trey Holly, who is a freak show of a running back, now is the leading all-time rusher in Louisiana high school football history, an incredible back. They only beat Sterlington by 8 points earlier this season. Not quite the season Sterlington wanted to have, but as you mentioned, Coach, everybody has something to play for, and when you're playing a rival, you got a little bit of extra chip on your shoulder. I can see that one
Amen.
Going either way.
Amen. Amen.
Let's go ahead and look at the local college football recap, where we did kind of already dig into some of that at the top. LSU went on the road and beat Arkansas 13-10. A very sloppy game for LSU, despite even going forward couldn't even go forward on 4th down right. You had the ball on your own 25. You jump off sides. You have a holding call on a fake punt. I mean, and then, that's kind of the way the game went for LSU. It was very sloppy, but they ran the ball extremely well, and they played incredible defense. But, what's crazy to me, Coach, is that the impact that a freshman is having on the field, and the guy that they claim doesn't even fully understand the defense to the full extent. And, oh, by the way, he had the flu. So he's sick before the game and still has a game like that. Harold Perkins is an absolute freak show, and the comparisons have been made, and we're hearing the name Tyrann Mathieu, and he definitely has a similar feel. He's a guy who, if he continues to improve and understand the defense and find his way, Coach, he's going to be special. He's a top 3, top 5 pick. Like maybe even this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's sort of funny how he wasn't even on the field early in the year, didn't play very much against Tennessee. And really what happens, and no matter what they're saying, they didn't have a package for him. He didn't fit in there. No, they really didn't know him. And sometimes it takes you have to get into the fire itself, and then that's what really happened. Is that all of a sudden they discover this guy? Wait a minute now, he's been on the bench, but he's better than we thought he was. So I mean, coaches they can make excuses all they want to, but that happens all the time. When a guy gets in, here comes another guy. He does that. So credit to them. But all the signs of being, and I hate to use flat, but not being intense, I think that's a better phrase, is were there, sloppy tackling, drop passes, illegal procedures, a lack of focus, all those come into play with that. But anyway, they got the W. That's the most important thing, keeps their hopes alive. They have to be very, very careful about this week because they have a team coming in there that's going to kind of be hungry. And so let's hope that they don't start reading their press clippings. Yeah,
they do have a UAB team which has beat LSU in Death Valley before, although it was 22 years ago. Again, it's still very possible for happening. Tulane had a tough loss this week, Coach. They dropped 38-31 against UCF. UCF is As advertised, I mean, they're a very good team, but Tulane continued to fight. They were down a couple scores late in the game, drove down the field, put up a touchdown by an incredible play by the quarterback. Pratt ducked under a tackle and found the receiver open just a little bit too late in the game. And Tulane still has a lot to play for. Season's not over after this one game.
They had so many if onlys in this ball game. You know that they had so many chances to drop a touchdown pass. They dropped a big third down pass early in the first drive. They fumbled a ball on the mesh. That's something that's uncommon. They had a couple offsides and things like that. They had one defensive back had 3 interference calls. One of them was very, very questionable, and another was on the fourth down. They gives them the ball. So Coach Fritz said that he alluded to that we made some mistakes in that one ball game that they hadn't done all year long, and they got really, really behind early. And it was hard to come back against a real good team, but they did. They did come back, and they had a chance to tie it at the end. So they will correct those. They will correct those errors. I mean, how do you correct a punt? Here's a punt. A guy's blocking on one of the gunners, and he hits him, and they get the ball right there, and they go in for a score. So those kind of things that just happen in a big ball game, and I got a lot of confidence that they're well coached. I got a lot of confidence that this football team will bounce back against SMU this week. And in fact, it's going to be on Thursday night.
Coach, there was also that fumble that was from UCF. Did you catch that play, and did you think that was a fumble? It looked like the ball was coming out to me, and I believe they overturned it or they kept it. I'm not sure if they kept it on the field, but it was a fumble by the quarterback. The ball appeared to be loose on the way to the ground, and I disagreed with the call. It looked like it was on the turf, and I believe that led to 6 points.
Yeah, they did, and they overturned that call. You're exactly right, Jay. So, that's part of the game. But with the instant replay, you like to think that they can get that right. But after watching the Buffalo game yesterday in Minnesota, I said, well, anything's possible now.
Another game we want to talk about was Southeastern taking on Nichols. The game is going to be at Nichols. Big rivalry matchup, Coach. And, Southeastern has a lot to play for. Nichols has that chance to play spoiler against an in-state rival. And, again, it's an opportunity for them to show that they can still compete against the best in their conference.
No question. I think this is a big, big game for Coach Selfo. Not only for the conference championship, but also for an opportunity for him to get into the playoffs with some kind of bid there. And I think Coach Rebo and them remembers this has always been a tight ball game. No matter where they play, they always play on Thursdays. It's on television. And so this has always been a great, great rivalry between the two schools. And that's what it's supposed to be like. You're supposed to play teams like this. And you like to see more matchups with local schools like this. And both coaches, good friends of mine. And, in fact, Coach Rebo was on a couple of weeks ago. And hopefully Coach Selfo will come on with us next weekend. And so it'll be an interesting game for us to watch, along with Tulane and SMU.
We're going to go ahead and change gears here and take a look at the Saints and their game this weekend. Coach, Saints drop another one. This time it was the Steelers, 20-10. What can the Saints do schematically, or just what do you think at this point in the season they can do to turn things around? Again, it feels like the season slipped away at this point, and the problem is it's not like you can fail into getting a high draft pick. You traded that away. So at this point, how do you turn things around if you're the Saints? Because you're so far in debt in terms of the players that are on your roster, dead cap. You can't trade them, you can't cut them, and you're still continuing to lose. So what do they do from here?
Well, Jason, number one, everybody's going to look at the quarterback. I mean, and really, it's not all his fault. I mean, look at the offensive line. He's got 3 new starters in the offensive line. He's got a brand new center. He had to juggle some guys right there. Can't get guys on the field. I mean, there's Michael Thomas, plays 10 games in 3 years. Marcus Lattimore, what's happened to him? I mean, what kind of stomach ailment does he have? We don't understand that. They're not disclosing any of that stuff. That's one of the best corners, all-pro corner, and he's not even on the field. So they have to rely on young cornerbacks out there that get an interference calls, which I might add, I think a lot of those are bogus. I mean, when you look at most completions, and then the one in the end zone, the tight end pushes off on the guy, and they called interference on him. The league needs to look at that a little bit more. But getting back to it, one, they got to get their players on the field. Two, I would like to see if Tyson Hill is going to run some Wildcat. he's good enough thrower. They have no throws with him. He has to also throw the ball a little bit, because as soon as they see a Wildcat come in, they're going to cram the line of scrimmage. They're going to put that strong safety in your lap. He's like an extra linebacker and stuff like that. I like to see that a little bit more. And naturally, I think, their offense is predicated on Kamara. And, there's Ingram on the sideline again and stuff like that. So not all the blame. If they want to go to Winston, fine. I don't know if that's going to be the solution. I think that there's a lot of blame to go around. The best linebacker is out. He's not making plays. I think you look at the injury list right now and see who's available and who's practicing, who's not. I heard somebody say that, even Matthew. I think Matthew doesn't have that extra step he used to have. Jarvis Landry just got back on the field. Those guys are sort of, they're good football players, but they're retreads. And I think that the bottom line is that they have to play better as a team. Naturally, everybody says the same thing, whatever that means. But I think that locker room is probably pretty clean. I really feel badly for Coach Allen, because I really think that he's a good man. He's an excellent football coach. And but sometimes you need to get on these guys. Excuse my expression. You need to get on their ass a little bit to get them moving.
Coach, do you think of course, the fans are kind of not happy with the current state of the team? Do you think it's fair for Coach Allen to be getting the heat that he is when it seems like they've been kind of biding their time, playing for now, really giving up all their draft stock and capital to where it looks like this is going to be a tough hole to climb out of? And when you look at the immediate impact, you see losses. But when you look down the road, you see there's nothing to restock with. We have nothing. We have no bargaining chips because all these players are going to count against our cap. So who's really to blame in this situation?
I don't know. I think whatever's happening internally is happening, and how you get guys that got these bogus injuries. And Michael Thomas has an interior toe. Now, that's not even operable. I don't know what you do with something like that. And then the other guy has a stomach ailment. And great players, but I don't understand what's going on with that. And are they hiding behind a big fat contract? I don't know. I remember Spark Anderson said, a long time ago, give me 25 guys that in the last year of their contract, and I'll give you a pennant winner. So I really don't know if there's an answer there, Jason. I just hope that they can rebound and play better and maybe get on a little run, and who knows what will take place.
All right, so that'll do it for our first segment. And in our next segment, we're going to have special guest Sam Spiegelman, National Recruiting Analyst. And in our Let's Be Frank segment, we are going to have a coach discussing the possibility of maybe being beneficial for the Catholic League to split defensive coverages and more. And before we head to break, we're going to go ahead and thank our title sponsor, Accardo and Dufresne Law Firms. Samuel Accardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Accardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Samuel Accardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Accardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen. Starting in 1981 as an industrial vacuum truck company, A3M Vacuum Services has grown to be an industry leader in waste disposal services. Whether it's providing cleanup crews for plant maintenance or emergency crews for environmental cleanup and disposable projects around the river parishes and New Orleans, A3M Vacuum Services maintains the same level of personal customer relations and work ethic that founder Pat Sellers started almost 40 years ago. Proud supporters of Comet Athletics.
If you're looking for commercial or residential dump truck services, go with R&K Construction. This family-owned and operated business has great trucks and are big supporters of high school sports. Smoothie King LaPlace thanks the community for 29 years. Through the good times and the toughest times, Smoothie King has been here to serve our guests. Whether you're looking for a keto-friendly smoothie, a recovery smoothie, or a healthy, refreshing snack, Smoothie King has you covered. Discover all the ways to be your best self and rule the day with Smoothie King. If you're in need of storage space at your home or business, stop by and visit with the good folks at Acadia LLC. Seth Boudreaux and his employees are there weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Give them a shout at 985-359-1333 or visit them at 1301 West Airline Highway in LaPlace. Tonight, our special guest is a graduate from the Philip Merrill College of Journalism at the University of Maryland, is a former high school reporter for NOLA.com, and is a current national recruiting analyst at On3. We want to welcome our special guest, Sam Spiegelman. Sam, you've been covering this area for quite some time. And, what about this class in Louisiana stands out to you this year as opposed to other years?
Probably that Arch Manning is right at the top, and that's such a unique experience to cover someone like Arch and what he means to this not only the city of New Orleans but the state of Louisiana, and clearly what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years is what he means to the entire country. Coach can attest to this. We've had some incredible players that come through Louisiana year in and year out. When I got here, it was Leonard Fournette and Dante Jackson, and every year, recently, Mason Smith, the #1 player in the country out of Houma, Louisiana. But covering Arch and him being the face of this 2023 class it's been spectacular. I think the attention that he brings to New Orleans, to Louisiana, and the football in our state, I think it's spectacular.
The question is, Sam, this is Frank. Listen, thank you so much for doing this for us. I think, it really heightens the awareness of our show, and it certainly gives us a lot more integrity rather than just have me to just lie to people all the time. So I appreciate it. But Sam, in recruiting, when I was at Tulane, I recruited for 12 years and was there. And I remember our AD, Kevin White, who's now, I think, Kevin's at Duke University. He brought us in and said, listen, he said, Louisiana ranks 5th in the country in Division I football players. And from that time on, our head coach, Buddy Tevens, he pulled a lot of guys. We had guys in Chicago, Florida, New York, and he brought them in and brought them into Louisiana. And with that move, that team, he was no longer there to see it. But Tommy Bowden went 12-0 with most of those guys from that football team. So what you're saying is really, really correct. I have a question, Sam, that I've been meaning to ask a lot of recruiting guys. How do recruiting guys arrive at the so-called 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a nuance to me. I probably learned this 5 or 6 years ago, but the basis behind 3 stars is saying that by 3 stars is the equivalent of saying you are a Power 5 player. I think by now in 2022, what is a Power 5 player at this point? Because there's so many athletes, and I think people start training so early to be a college football player or a college Division I athlete that we see it in grows. That there's not enough players that only sign Power 5 talent. There are Power 5 players at Tulane right now, and the introduction of the NCAA transfer portal makes it even more efficient for Power 5 players to play at non-Power 5 schools. But back to your original question, so 3 stars is the equivalent to a Power 5 level player. When you start getting into the 4-star players, you're talking about 2nd and 3rd round picks, the top 200 to 300 players in the entire country. And then on a given year, you could have up to 32 5-star players, just representing the not only the best players in the country, but the top of the top charts of the entire country, the 32 players that you believe will be called to the first 32 picks of the NFL draft one day.
Okay. Because being a former recruiter myself, Sam, I always wondered, I used to have a sports writer come in my office, and he would get my list and he would get my list. And then he talked about he really didn't see the guys. Then he would get the list, and then he would publish the list based on that. And naturally, we kept that very, very confidential. Didn't want it to get out. But, my next question, how do you feel about highlight tapes?
I think if done correctly, they can be very helpful. Nowadays, you get a mixed bag. I think Lindsey Scott, coach, from Zachary, the state champion, one of the Gatorade Player of the Year.
Played for 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, had the best highlight tape ever. It was categorized by passes, by runs, by designed runs. It was perfect, and it was concise in 3 minutes. Nowadays, you get 10-minute highlight tapes. You get your first 3-game highlights, your first 6-game highlights. I think I think it can be done, and I think it's necessary. I think it's for someone in my job. I think it's absolutely necessary. You can only be at one game on a Friday night, as and while you want to be at so many places, you also have to maintain, the wife at home and keep friendships and relationships in your family to be at all the games each weekend you want to be. So highlight tapes are essential, and done correctly can go a long way.
Well, personally, I used to love to I think that it catches your attention first. But I always wanted to make sure I went through game tape because I've never seen a bad highlight tape. Have you? So
Nope.
I always wanted to go through a game tape to see the good part of them and the bad part. And I thought, for me, I always wanted to make sure I saw a live game and practices because I think a lot of things nowadays are just subjective until you see that live.
And no doubt, and Coach, when you go to a practice, when you go to a game, like you said, one, if you're doing a full evaluation, if you want to see a quarterback, I would never take a quarterback in my recruiting class without seeing him every single snap. And not only, just how he plays on a snap-to-snap basis, how does he lead from the sidelines? What does his coaches say about him? What do his teammates say about him? You can tell a lot by their demeanor, as Coach. And you can get that in spades. And, you develop relationships with coaches where, they'll call you when they have a player and they'll be, hopefully honest with you about the level that they think they can be at. And you learn so much more about the actual character of that recruit. And I think that can help elevate someone from a 4 to a 5 or whatever you want to call it. But you can really tell the good ones from when you see them in person and hearing what their teammates and people close to them say about them.
Yeah, exactly right. I always believe the same as really looking at their work ethic, to watch them on the field, watch their practice habits and things like that, their leadership. Because one thing I've always felt like I needed to network a kid. I didn't just want to talk to that head coach that was just going to sell me somebody. I wanted to network him, talk to the assistant on the side, talk to a trainer, make sure he wasn't in the training room every other day, and something like that. But the other things, how do you feel about staff? Because as parents would come to my office all the time and say, "Well, Coach, he's got 1,000 yards here. He's all district. He's all carport, Mr. Cucumber. Why can't he get a full scholarship?"
No, yeah, stats are nice, right? If you run the right offense, Coach, you can really pile up the numbers, and you give a running back, like Elijah Davis at Riverside, the ball 40 times a game, he's going to churn out 300, 400 yards a game. That's just what's going to happen at that level of football. I think stats can be really important. I think, if you want to tell for a quarterback their completion percentage, if you want to check on their touchdown interception ratio, if you're looking for, a defensive lineman, you want to see some of their production, but you also know that a defensive tackle might not have 8 sacks in a season. They might not have 8 sacks in their entire career. But if they're occupying blockers in the middle of the defensive line, that's more important to open up for those numbers for the linebackers and the defensive ends, and the whole deal. So to me, yes, stats can tell the story, but it's like you said, if you're going to do a full evaluation, if you're going to get a scholarship, that's coming off more than just stats. Stats can be deceiving. If I was in your shoes, Coach, I would put all my best players on defense because you would manufacture offense. And those stats would be very deceiving until you got their 40 times and their heights and weights and all the other X factors that go into a full evaluation.
Yeah, you're so right. I really agree with that, Sam. The other thing, is the level of competition. There's some, like for instance, one of the kids you just mentioned, he's got a lot of yards, and he is a good back. I've seen him. He's a D1 guy, strong, powerful. But there are a lot of them out there. They're playing in district that not really tough. It's not their fault. But you have to evaluate the competition that they're playing in. That's why a lot of people gravitate to the bigger schools. Do you agree with that?
100%. And I think, if you're going to do it at a 1A, a 2A, a 3A level, a smaller classification, you need to be the best player on the field on a given night. I think you can argue that about Derek Stingley Jr. at the Dunham School. Every time he touched the field, no matter who he played against, he was always the best player. Or it's Monday Night Football, and Devontae Smith from A-Mead is up there. And every time he played offense, defense, special teams, quarterback, punted, he did everything for A-Mead. And if you're going to play at that lower classification, you're going to have to kind of show it. People are always going to be skeptical, and it's understood. You're going against you're not going against the bigger, deeper teams with all the talent, so you better dominate. And I think if you can dominate at that level, then I think that can translate to Saturdays.
No question, Sam. Our wives can pick out a super duper player. You know what I mean? But I think recruiting comes down to an opinion, basically. What do you think this guy has? The intangibles that you have to see. I think that those things are so important in recruiting. And some of the guys you just mentioned, they're slam dunks. But on the flip side, you don't know what's internal. When I was at Tulane, we recruited a guy that won one game in 2 years. One game, but his coach. He was a guy that I respected. His coach said, "Coach, take a chance on him." His name was DeJuan Dawson, and he ended up playing for Tulane. He was the only offer he had was Tulane, and he went on to play with the Houston Texans. And since then time, he passed away. So sometimes you overturn a stone, especially in Louisiana, because we don't have all the funds we need. We don't have all the great facilities in Louisiana, and we have a very, very small coaching staff. So I think Louisiana is a diamond in the rough. Would you agree with that?
Well, without question, wouldn't hesitate to agree with that. And you said it. I spend a good amount of time in Texas, and then I live here in New Orleans, and I live by Warren Easton, and you see the field that they practice on. The resources that the kids have in Louisiana, they don't have it. That's the moral of the story. It's a shame, but there's a lot of small towns, where if they had more, you'd wonder what those kids would be able to do. How many times can you go to a town and not even know where the town is? I feel like I go to a different town every single year. I've lived in Louisiana for 10 plus years. That's the beauty of this town the state. And you mentioned it, the highest draft capita per state is the smallest state and produces the most NFL talent. A lot of it goes undiscovered, and it kind of goes to what you say. Sometimes it's about those relationships, from going to those live evaluations, going to games on Friday nights, going to practices, seeing what kids are like. Because you can find, not everyone's going to play for a 10-0 Destrehan team. Some kids are going to have to play for the 2-8 teams, but that doesn't mean there's no talent there. It doesn't mean there's kids that are going to develop maybe 2 or 3 years later and need to go to a college program and put on weight and get the proper nutrition and all the other X factors.
Right. Some of these little small towns, you're exactly right. That like you go to a meet, where the train stops just for kicks, stuff like that. But they got great players, stuff of that nature. A quick story. When I was coaching, at Tulane, I was recruiting a school, and I was very good friends with this coach. I went in that school maybe 7, 8 years in a row, and he would tell me, "I have no players for you. I have no players. I got none this year. I got one, but he's not very good with the grades. Got one." All of a sudden, that 1 year I went there, he said, "Frank, I got 3." And you know what? He was right. So you have to know who to believe. You have to know. One of them was a guy by the name of Jamaican Dortez, who actually ended up playing at Tulane for a long time. So, but my question to you, Sam, what about the grades? How's the GPA and the ACTs in terms of that? Do you guys research that also?
No, that's something that you generally you hear about, probably, from those lab evaluations. You hear from those coaches, and the biggest advice, everyone wants, like kind of what you mentioned, Coach. Everyone wants to know how to be a 3-star and a 4-star and stuff. No one is going to offer anyone until they talk to the coach and get the approval to give an offer. So you might have all the talent in the world, but if your coach says you got a bad GPA and he's not going to graduate, he's going to have to go to JUCO. No one's going to offer you. So it's a huge part of the evaluation. There's a ton of great players that have to take the JUCO route, but the JUCO route, as you know, is extremely rigorous. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's on top of being a fantastic athlete, you have to overcome the education side, and it's an uphill battle. And then, like you said, like small towns here, they don't have all the resources at the JUCO level. So if we can use this platform, put the emphasis on all the off-season training, all the weight room stuff, all the spring football, also focus on the grades. That's equally as important to this equation.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, Sam, some of them have fast feet and slow minds. You know how that works. So, Sam, are you somewhat connected to any of the universities where they get your service and stuff like that? You don't have to mention who they are, but are some of the universities connected? Because I know there was Collegiate Sports Data was one of those for a long, long time. Are you connected with anyone?
No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad. So you're independent. Basically, you're not. It doesn't show any type of favoritism to some schools. Sam, what about? Are you familiar with the athletes? I understand that Destrehan High School just has a number of D1 guys. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I've got Destrehan twice this season. They've been man. I don't want to get Coach Scott to get mad at me, but they would be my pick right now in 5A if I was going to unveil my bracket.
I agree, Sam. I agree. I coach Coach Scott, so Marcus Scott, so he won't get mad at you because he's too good of a guy. He's not a butthole like me, but he's a nice guy.
Yeah, Destrehan, Coach. You want to talk about winning formula? They got multiple running backs, including a junior Shane Lee, who's a stout running back, but he's got powerful lower body, which you'd expect from Destrehan. They feed him the rock. They got Jai Eugene Jr. Everyone who's listening to this knows who his dad is. But Jai committed to Tulane. What I look for in a recruit coach, and I think you would attest to this, someone who gets better every single year. Jai was a fantastic underclassman. He's continued to ascend. He's playing out of position at quarterback. He can make plays throwing the ball, which is just – I think he could play quarterback at a group of 5 level, no question. Obviously, he's going to play defensive back like his dad when he gets to Tulane. But some of the things, the athletic ability, the decision-making, the versatility of their offense, they go 5 or 6 deep. Obviously, they have talent at the wide receiver position, starting with Leslie Jefferson, who's a big, long receiver that can stretch the field. But they got playmakers. I think Daniel Blood is one of the steals of – you talked about gems. Daniel Blood is one of them. He just picked up an SEC offer from Missouri. I know that Tulane really likes him. But they also got a bunch of underclassmen over there. Johnny Thiel is everyone knows his dad from Curtis and then East St. John and Johnny Thiel, the next wave, and he's going to be a standout in that 2025 class. They go extremely deep. Jabari Mack and speed, and then defensively, they have 2 big defensive tackles that are completely under recruited. One's a senior, one's a junior. I think one is 6'3", 280. The other is 6'2", 270. They're big in the middle, and they got Kalaj Cobbins coming off the edge. One of the best edge rushers, not only in the state, but in the country. And he blew up last year. I think he led the state in tackles quietly at Destrehan. And they have a secondary filled with D1 talent. Leonard Harris is going to ULM. And then Anthony Robinson is one of my favorite juniors in the state. He's got some early SEC offers, and he flies to the football, one of those hybrid safety linebackers that, you just want on your defensive side of the ball to kind of set the tone.
Yeah, I heard a lot about them. I heard there were 9. I talked to coaches that have played them. Also, there's a Winfield kid at Lutcher, Sam. I think I've seen him play a couple of times. He's an excellent player. I don't know if he's a true D1 quarterback, but he is something. Have you seen him?
I've seen Duhe. I think the kids call him lunch, and man, he brings it every single week. I don't know. I think he, again, kind of like the same thing with Jai Eugene Jr. I think he could play at a Power 5 level, at maybe a athlete position. I think he could play Group of 5 quarterback, no question. He is, but on Friday nights, Coach, he is the real deal. With the game on the line, I don't know how many more players in the entire state you would want to lead your offense, and one of those players who's, when you play for Coach Jenkins, he leans on you, and he's come through in so many big moments. He's someone going into the playoffs that can really just be the difference in one of these close games.
No question. Coach, there's a couple in New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans is just loaded with athletes. I mean, you can take a bus and car and put his whole defense on the field and say, well, put it this way. I mean, they could probably compete in the Southern Belt Conference as a team right now. And then saw 2 the other night, the big tackle from John Ehret, the big tackle that's committed to LSU. And they have a quarterback over there, Coach. I'm telling you, there's a quarterback over there by the name of Falgu. He's not really tall, but this kid's got some jets. I mean, and I saw the kid from Romo that actually recruited by LSU. I saw him not catch that guy. I mean, that guy was extremely fast. Have you heard about those guys?
Yeah, Coach. Well, let's start it right at the top. You mentioned who'd you start with? He's talking the John Ehret offensive tackle. He's playing out of position. I think he's going to move inside when he gets to LSU. But Coach, you saw how big he is.
He's gigantic.
I was told he was over 350 pounds at the begining of the summer. He lost a ton of weight, and I think he's really light on his feet. So I think when you start how that translates to the SEC, he's got a whole other a year or two before he even gets to LSU. What he's going to look like, what his body's going to look like. I like how powerful he is, but also athletic. I know his quarterback is Royal Falgout. His older brother, I believe, played defensive back at Tulane. Again, just an under recruited kid, but a high school playmaker. This entire Ehret team got turned around once Royal was healthy, and you saw them make it to the playoffs and end up winning their district because of Royal's return and allowing Wardell Mack, their top 100 cornerback that they got at Ehret, to play some receiver and then also play a little bit more on defense.
But you're exactly right. St. Charles is a junior by the name of Kyle Cannon that's going to be pretty good. Samari Scott is a senior that I don't know if he's a college running back, but he's a 6'1.5", 215-pound back that's really, really getting some attention. He's got a couple of small offers, but he might be something else. I know Mississippi State showed some interest in him and stuff like that, but he's a very, very smart kid and just learning to play the game, really. But anyone else along the river?
He was flying off. Samari was returning punts. He plays running back for St. Charles. Saw him play a little bit of stand-up linebacker off the ball, and he can really get to the sidelines. Yeah, he's raw, but if he's someone with size and speed, he's got some, not the fastest track times, but I like that he runs track. He's a long strider. I don't think he's going to burn you with that length. I like his position versatility. You mentioned Carr, Coach. I think this is the best Carr defense they've had since Gerald Willis was there. They got an off the ball linebacker, Jonathan Bax, who I think might be the best defensive player in the state. He's been absolutely terrific. He's got violent hands. He's got speed. He's got relentless pursuit. I love how he bends and how he moves, and how he also can defend to the sideline. And then you mentioned Ashton Stamps, the LSU commit on Rummel. I think he just makes a ton of plays for them, not only on the back end and the secondary, Coach, but I like how he makes plays on special teams. And I think, listen, not everyone is going to make the starting lineup right away as a freshman or a sophomore even. But if you can make a difference on special teams, that's going to get you a leg up.
I agree, because he can punt return and kickoff return. He's long. He's very long.
They 4.5 speed.
Yeah. They say that speed never has an off day. So that's important, things like that. But Sam, I really appreciate you taking your time with us. You're very, very insightful. You're very knowledgeable. You can tell you do your homework and things like that. So I hope and pray that somewhere along the line we get a chance to meet one another. I'll treat you some dead chicken or something one day.
Coach, I know I'll see you sometime in the Superdome. We'll catch up there. And I'm curious to see who's going to make it there this year. But every year the Superdome for state championships is always the best time of the year. And I appreciate you having me. It's fun having you ask me the questions.
Well, we talked about that. We think that River parishes with Dextrahan there. I think St. Charles Catholic has a chance. I think that down Lutcher has a very, very good chance to get in there if they get by this week against St. Martinville. So that at Riverside definitely has a good chance. I think that not anybody in their class that can stop maybe one guy. But anyway, we appreciate that and hope to see you in the Superdome.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Sam. We appreciate it. We want to once again thank Sam Spiegelman for taking his time to come talk with us. In our next segment, we're going to have Coach discussing the possibility of maybe it being beneficial for the Catholic League to split. Football 101, we have defensive coverages. And for Thanks for the Memories, Coach is going to talk about Terrell Fenroy. But before we go to break, we want to thank LSR for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank podcast. LSR produces Southern Cane Pure Cane Sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Ross supermarkets. Samuel Accardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Accardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen. Starting in 1981 as an industrial vacuum truck company, A3M Vacuum Services has grown to be an industry leader in waste disposal services. Whether it's providing cleanup crews for plant maintenance or emergency crews for environmental cleanup and disposable projects around the river parishes and New Orleans, A3M Vacuum Services maintains the same level of personal customer relations and work ethic that founder Pat Sellers started almost 40 years ago. Proud supporters of Comet Athletics.
If you're looking for commercial or residential dump truck services, go with R&K Construction. This family-owned and operated business has great trucks and are big supporters of high school sports. Smoothie King LaPlace thanks the community for 29 years. Through the good times and the toughest times, Smoothie King has been here to serve our guests. Whether you're looking for a keto-friendly smoothie, a recovery smoothie, or a healthy, refreshing snack, Smoothie King has you covered. Discover all the ways to be your best self and rule the day with Smoothie King. If you're in need of storage space at your home or business, stop by and visit with the good folks at Acadia LLC. Seth Boudreaux and his employees are there weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Give them a shout at 985-359-1333 or visit them at 1301 West Airline Highway in LaPlace. We are back in segment 3 of the Let's Be Frank video podcast, but we want to thank our sponsor, Riverlands Insurance, for sponsoring this podcast. Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has always been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen. So, Coach, today on the Let's Be Frank segment, you want to discuss the possibility of the Catholic League splitting maybe being beneficial to their success level.
Well, let me first explain this. You know, the winds of football are really, really evolving. I mean, look what's happening with the SEC. They're expanding their team with Texas and Oklahoma. Look what other Big Ten is expanding. Everybody's expanding. So the winds of football are changing. And this is a very, very controversial thing because you have the very old guard, the blue bloods of the Catholic League. But just a suggestion, if things stay like they are, and the select schools stay like they are with the divisions intact like they are. In January, I think that maybe that might change because some of the schools might opt not to play in select level, and they have to go before the board and get that clarified. But my thought was this: if it stays like this, the Catholic League needs to consider by playing in their own attendance zone. And now what that would mean that if you're in a Jefferson Parish school, you play in the Jefferson Parish League. If you're in New Orleans school, you play in the New Orleans League. And this what they would do. This would give them a nice, well-rounded schedule because the number one thing that these Catholic schools battle is not only playing in a tough district, but their non-district schedule. In some cases, they're going out of state. Some are going to Florida. Some are going to Alabama. Some are going to Mississippi to find competition. And because a lot of schools in the state will not play them. And that's understandable. I lived that. Even at St. Charles Catholic when we were 2A school, that a lot of teams would not play you. So my point is this, is that it is so much easier for a coach to go out and find 3 games than it is for him to find 3 non-district games or maybe 2 non-district games than for him to find 7 or 5. So the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that there'll be more team to go in the playoffs if they would decide to look at this. They really need to take a good look at that. This is not a novel idea. It's been talked about in the circle, some people. But if you bring this to a lot of administrators that are in the Catholic League, I was in the Catholic League for 5 years and coached there. I know that they think that the most important thing there is to win the Catholic League, and their season is just about done. But I think coaches look at it totally different. And the alumni might not, because you got the blue bloods, the alumni that think that the Catholic League is the ultimate, and they might be right. It's a great academic district. It's a great competitive district, but it's really too competitive, especially since Carr's gotten in. And look at what Shaw has done. Shaw has moved out. Now they have a chance to move to be a quarterfinal team, a semifinal team, and maybe a Superdome team. And Holy Cross had talked about doing that years ago, about moving down in their actually numbers. Now, they can either do that. They can elect to stay in part in the Catholic League, or they can elect to maybe go down and play in the numbers classification, and that would give them a lesser schedule and be a lot more competitive. And because let me tell you, when you win a championship, it doesn't matter where you played. If a championship's a championship. And so that's something that I think that people have to understand where I'm coming from. That is something that they look at. It is unique in a way. It'd be very, very interesting. But some of the people like it is. But if it stays like it is, especially with the draw, you just look at the bottom part of the D1 bracket and tell me that that's a fair bracket, because this is the other thing that's very, very important. When you come through there, you have a chance to get a lot of injuries. I think Coach Salter-Formaggio, Holy Cross City, had something like 8 or 9 surgeries on that football team this year, and I mean of starters. So when you look at the brutal schedule, yeah, the other people want to see the Catholic League stay together because they beat one another up. But the bottom line, is it really fair for the LHSAA to look at that now? The LHSAA didn't have anything to do with this. This was their doing. Really, the Catholic League wanted to stay together for the integrity, the way it's been. Shaw is a rare. They just pulled apart. It used to be Chalmette used to be play in the Catholic League. So just wanted to throw that out for food for thought. And I'm not suggesting that they do it, but just another thought out there that might actually get some momentum.
Thank you, Coach. And we're going to go ahead and fast forward to our next segment, which is Football 101, where we lean on your expertise from your experience in coaching. And today we're going to talk about defensive coverages. Coach, can you go into some detail about defensive coverages and inform the public out there?
I'll be glad to, because, sometimes what happens between a defensive and offensive coordinator, guys, it becomes just a big chess match, and offensive coordinator he has the quarterback. They know so much more now than we did years ago with simplicity in offenses and defense, but now defenses are changing every snap. Offenses are changing personnel every snap. It's really, really a unique chess game that goes on that the public's not aware of. Number one, there's guys with binoculars on each side. As soon as they trade a tight end in, for instance, they bring in another outside linebacker on the other side. As soon as they put another back in the ball game, they bring in another linebacker. I mean, there's a lot of that going on. When they put more receivers in the game, here comes the nickel back or the dime back in the ball game. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of chess matching going on within the coaches and personnel. But the coverage, there's a lot of them. And I'm just going to cover just 4 or 5 basic ones that we have. Number one, the first coverage I'll call it is called Cover One, and Cover One basically means is that simple. And their name for it, and a lot of people just give color name for it, like that might be red or it might be blue coverage, and not to just say Cover One, so the opponent doesn't hear it, or they can flash a number or something like that. So they might just most people use a code word for it, whatever it might be Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, and that the players associate with those kind of codes and those kind of words. Cover One is a deep free safety, man coverage. Linebackers are locked up on the backs coming out of the backfield. Sometimes that's a mismatch, and Cover One can easily be made looking like Cover Three. But it's basically a man free. With the free the free safety is very, very deep. And in NFL, if you ever notice, the safety might be 20, 25 yards deep. I marvel at that sometimes, of how deep that they play. But because of their speed, they can make up ground. Cover Two is exactly what it sounds like. It's too deep. Two deep safeties, and the two corners have the flats underneath, and the flats are, it's actually the shell itself. What I mean by the configuration of it looks like it's too deep, but then the two corners are up. They play about 7 to 8 yards off the line of scrimmage. The safeties are 10 to 12 yards off the line of scrimmage, and they're normally located close to the hash. Now, for disguising purposes, they can get off the hash a little bit and then move there after the ball is actually snapped. But cover two is exactly what it sounds like, too deep. And basically anything, the idea here, anything over 20 yards thrown, those two safeties should reach it. And at one time, I didn't think that was possible until I did it myself. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure the Pittsburgh Steelers were the first one to invent cover two. And I experienced that myself when I was in college and said, I couldn't believe that because it looks like it's an open field, but where it really, really isn't. The other thing is a lot of people refer to cover two as 5 under linebackers too deep. So that's another way to call it. Cover three is another coverage. And it's exactly what it says. It's 3 deep. And so you divide the field in thirds. You divide it 1/3 between the hash mark, the middle of the field, 1/3, and outside the hash. That's why the hash is 17 2/3 yard. A football field is 160 feet wide. And so you divide the team in thirds. It's called cover three. So they play with 3 deep and 4 under. So the weakness of cover three will be the deep outs. Or the flat areas will be the weakness of cover three, and normally dictate maybe a 4 or 5 man rush, depending upon how you want to play it. But again, some of these disguises can go from 3 to 2 or 2 to 3. So cover four is the next one. Cover four looks a lot like it's 4 deep. It looks a lot like cover two, but the two corners will have a quarter of the field. So it's basically considered quarters. So that's another deal that, and the two outside linebackers are responsible for the flats underneath. And though a lot of people read that because if the second receiver goes to the flat, then the guy will level or the corner will come up and take the flat. It all depends on how they're playing it. But it was cover four was actually came into play when people started running 4 verticals. And 4 verticals is real tough on cover three teams. So that's why a lot of people invented the cover 4 thing. Cover 5 is a combination. It's a combination of man to one side and cover 2 to the other side. So it depends on how you want to play it. So you play man to the strong side, cover 2 to the weak side. And if you don't know what you're looking at as a quarterback, you can get yourself in trouble. And that happens often. Sometimes you see quarterbacks throw blindly into a coverage and you say, I didn't see him. Well, sometimes you didn't recognize the coverage. But that's what cover 5 normally is. And it's normally used in special situations. Cover 2 man. Cover 2 man is actually, it's a man coverage, but it's a combination coverage. The 2 safeties play zone, but the men underneath lock up. And now, cover 2 men is a very, very effective coverage, especially in your long yardage situation. Basically used when you don't have a mobile quarterback, and one that's not expected to run. If you have a mobile quarterback, this is a dangerous coverage because you can, if he drops back the pass and you have your head turned, you're covering the receivers, and he runs, he can run for 40, 50 yards before anyone sees him. So all these are there are many others. There's many other coverages out there, combination coverages, robber coverages out there that people use in combinations and sometimes just to take away a certain receiver. But all these coverages have merit. Do you go into a ball game with all of these? No. You probably refine these and say, all right, I'm going to go in here with this, and let's hope that this works and shuts them down. But you also have to have something in your back pocket. So basically, that's football 101 with some variations and coverages.
Thanks, Coach, for that information. And now we're going to go ahead and head to our Blitz the Ball Coach segment where somebody asks you a hard-hitting question. And, Coach, this is one that we've kind of had on the back burner for a while. But, what advice would you give a first-time head coach?
Oh, Jason, that is a huge question. It requires a lengthy answer, but let me start with this. Advice I would give, first of all, as a young coach, as an assistant. Let's take from there. If you're an assistant, one, be yourself. Don't try to be the head coach. Don't try to be somebody else. Be yourself. Don't try to copy the head coach because the head coach might be a different type of guy. He might be cool. He might be more intense and stuff like that. And so don't try to copy him. Number 2. Talk to as many people as you possibly can to get information. And I mean, when I first became an assistant coach, when there was a college coach that came in and recruited my players, I got him on the board. We talked X and O's. I wanted to pick his brain and learn as much of that as possible. 3, go to clinics. Get as much knowledge as you possibly can. I was coach for 50 years and I was still going to clinics. And I said, you know what? Why did you do that? Not that you learned something brand new, but I wanted to pick up a term. I wanted to pick up something that would help me teach the kids better. Give me a term that would teach these kids better, and every now and then you'd write that term down, you would use it, you would take it back. So clinics were very, very important, 4, be a loyal assistant. Do something before that head coach tells you, because coaches don't, being the head coach, I didn't want to have to tell this guy every game, did you do this? Did you do that? I didn't want to micromanage the guy. You know what you have to do. Go ahead and do it ahead of time. Your number one thing to do as assistant coach is to please the head coach. That's very, very important. Okay. And if you become a first-time head coach, make sure that you get loyal assistants. As an assistant, you want to be loyal to the head coach, because he's going to, if he moves somewhere, he might take you with him. If not, he'll give you a resounding, endorsement for your next job. That's so important. But once you become a head coach, make sure you show your board, your administration, that you have a vision. And I give this advice to anybody. What I mean by that, you show them, this is where I want to be. I want to build a new weight room. I want to build a new field house. I want to do something. I want to be a great fundraiser. You need to show them that you have a vision. How are you going to do it? Exactly how you're going to do it. There's a lot of ways to go to Chicago, but you need to do something that's different. I always like it. I would suggest take your football team to camp. One of the best things we did when I went to St. Charles and wherever I coached was take my football team to camp when we could. And raise money for it, whatever you have to do, because it's something that, not many other people are doing. And it's solid football for a whole week. And I think that's very, very important. And they will help you with it. Another thing, always dangle a carrot in front of your administration and your board and the people that count. What it means, show them that this is what I want. I would like in the future, maybe it might be 10 years from now, but show them this is what I'd like to have in the future. Whatever it's going to take, I want new lights or a new stadium. I want something, big ticket items. Show them that you have a vision, and that's where you want to go. And who knows, some big benefactor or someone might come up with it. Not just the taxpayers' money. Okay, and be an avid fundraiser. I always like to fundraise because the reason why I wanted to spend it. I wanted to spend the money, but I didn't want to go to the administration and then because you have to go through red tape. But I wanted to say, okay, we raise this money, it's in our budget, this amount of money. I want to be able to spend it on ticket items. So be an avid fundraiser. There's so many things that you can do out there, whether it's a raffle, golf tournaments, or whatever it might be, And last but not least, I think, this is important, work as hard as you possibly can. Work as hard as you possibly can. Be the first one in the office and the last one to leave, because I think that's so important. They tell the wolves in the wolf pack is that the pace of the leader determines the speed of the pack. The pace of the leader determines the speed of the pack. So be the first one in and then the first one out.
Thank you, Coach. And now we're going to go ahead and look at our Thanks for the Memory segment, where you want to highlight one of your former players, Terrell Fenroy.
Yeah, Jason, this is a guy that's kind of close to your heart. This is a guy, he was such a great player. He played as a freshman. I didn't start all the games as a freshman, but he started as a freshman. He gained over 5,000 yards in his career at St. Charles Catholic. He had 82 touchdowns. 82 touchdowns in his career. He was nicknamed the Train because he had this thing about when he would score, he would just pump his arm in the air like this as a train, and whenever he scored, the people would go choo-choo. It was pretty cool. He was 5'8", 190, and solid, no body fat on him whatsoever. He was not a wiggle guy whatsoever. He just ran you over, and he was hard to tackle. If he got in the secondary, got behind anybody, no one caught him. I can ever remember anybody running him down and catching him. His name was Terrell Fenroy. Terrell, I remember playing against Downsonville one night. The first play from scrimmage, he ran for a 70-yard touchdown. On the way to a touchdown on about the 25-yard line, he started throwing up. And you could see it was coming through his face mask and everything. And he scored a touchdown. He came to the bench, and we sat in the rest of the game. And no telling how many touchdowns he could have scored that one night. But he was just a humble guy. He became Mr. Comet at Tulane. At St. Charles Catholic. And the players loved him. The teachers loved him because he was very, very quiet. His dad, he grew up right there in Myville, and just a super player. Very quiet. He went into law enforcement when he finally graduated, and I mean the players just love this guy. He had played for Dwayne Duffy, had this so-called little league team called the Titans. They discovered him, and Dwayne, I remember him telling me, he said, "Coach, wait till you get this guy." He said he's the real deal, and he was so right with him, and he had a phenomenal career there. He went on to ULL to play at ULL. In fact, he's one of 4 backs in the entire country to have 1,000 yards in all 4 of his seasons. 1,000 yards in all 4 of his seasons at ULL. So tribute to a guy, good friend, very close to my son. He's very close to my son Ty. They communicate often, and he's now living in the Lafayette area. His name is Terrell Fenroy. So thanks for the memories, Terrell, for all the things that you did for the SEC Comets.
And Coach, if I'm not mistaken, he also set the Sun Belt rushing record at one point. I think it's kind of changed hands over the course of time, but you mentioned the time he had at St. Charles. I ran the balls in for you, and it was always fun when you could overhear the play and you could hear it was a run play. You just kind of like set your feet and see if you could beat him in the end zone. Meanwhile, he's run over 3 and 4 players on the way and still beats you by 20 steps. I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch even when I was younger. But to see the success he had at the next level as well at UL was incredible. But heck of an athlete. And he was so. You know what, Coach? A funny story too. I was younger. I never played on the same team as Terrell, but there was one day when I would have to wake up to bring my brother to school when he had meetings in the morning, and we'd wait. Just one day we wake up and we see somebody pulling a sled, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning before school, and see somebody pulling a sled. It's not a training session or a day. It's him pulling it back and forth and doing stadiums. And, I just remember my dad saying, and that's why he is where he is. Just a hardworking guy and somebody that everybody respected in the program. And he's an incredible athlete. Amen. So, Coach, let's go ahead and head on to our Lock of the Week segment. And, Coach, I've had a really rough year. Let's see where you stand in this week.
Oh, my God. I'm going to go with Mississippi State, and I'm going to be a dog this week with Mississippi State. I think they played hard the other night. Didn't play smart, but they played hard. And I really think that Ole Miss's defense is somewhat suspect.
I'm actually going the opposite way. It's I'm going to take Ole Miss, which has -2.5 over Arkansas. I think Arkansas is kind of licking their wounds a little bit after that loss against LSU. I think Ole Miss is going to kind of have a little bit of a revenge factor, and I like the Rebels to rebound in that one. And that'll do it for episode number 11. Coach, it certainly doesn't feel like it's been 11 episodes. I wasn't here for one, of course, but 10 episodes. It feels like it was only yesterday we were practicing and prepping, and now we're nearing the end. But again, it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to be here next week with you as well before we read our socials. Any final thoughts before we head out?
No, I hope to have Coach Frank Selfo. I got to contact him, but he's a personal friend, so hope we can get him on next week.
All right, so let's go ahead and plug our social medias. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Facebook is at the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at the LBF Podcast. We're also on Google and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Make sure you follow us. Let people know where to find us if you prefer to listen to the audio version. And I'll do it here. So thanks so much for tuning in. And for Justin Thomas and head coach Frank Monica, I am Jason Duhe. And remember, was a volunteer and label of the good times roll.